I think the challenge with Mozart, no matter what you play, is to get the style of the composer. And one of the big points that to take into consideration is that you have to have a singing tone, because what you're playing here is almost like the opera. You're hearing voices, you're hearing a soprano line, you're hearing at the same time an interesting bass line. But when you have the broken chord bass, which is the Alberti bass, which is really something to be very aware of, you want to make sure it's rolling beautifully in a floating kind of way. And that exactly is what introduces the first theme here, is the underlying rolling broken chords called Alberti bass. And so I would examine that separately if I were doing this. Again, I would probably do a back tempo when I'm learning a piece. I'm not going to do pedal right now. It will need pedal, but you have to be very careful in Mozart with pedal, because it can get very drowny and lose the classical era clean sound, the clean but vocal sound. Murray Pariah talks about the singing pulse, and that's another thing. You know, you have to have a singing pulse going through Mozart, but you can't take huge liberties. So in the very beginning, you have the Alberti bass, and you just want to get it very clean and rolling and floaty like this. You might want to block it first, because you have the tonic G major chord, you have the 5-7, which is inverted here, is the 5-4-3 inversion, and then you have a plain dominant without the seventh here, and then it resolves. So the way you block it is the way you're doing the harmonic rhythm when you unblock it. What you're leaning on, what you're resolving, is revealed in the harmony. So the one chord to the dominant, also the dominant, resolves. Now when you roll it out, you get this. It's about as simple as that. Now in the right hand, it's very interesting in terms of the harmony. When you introduce this theme, it has this wonderful pickup to the dominant, resolve to the tonic. So I really think half of the phrase you have to think dominant, and then the answer to that is tonic. That suggests again the way you shape it. If I add a little pedal, I get this. Dab the pedal. Now the next part of the phrase is a little impish. You get this playing around with FPs. And now we're going from the 4 chord here, 4 chord, to the 1 chord. So you might want to also shape a little bit deeper into the 4 chord part and lighten into the 1, because 4 lean, 1 less. But at the same time, he has FPs in both measures, whether it's on the 4 chord or it's on the tonic. But nonetheless, you can shape it down just a little bit to get this beautiful artistic quality to it. You know, just a little bit. Now what he does here is he's going to intensify the phrase, because the phrase now is going to encompass a speeding up of the melody, you could say, because he has a lot of 16th notes coming. And this rhythm is also very, very emblematic of this movement. The dotted 8th, 16th, that has to be very much settled. How are you going to play your dotted 8th, 16th? Here it comes bigger. Now that's something with the scale that you can't play a flat scale that just goes nowhere. The scale has to have a curvature to it, like you would be a singer. But a very good singer would be able to skew it around to the top and make a little turnaround, a beautiful turnaround at the peak, which is a rounded corner, not a square one, and bring it down to the cadence. And so this is difficult. Now this is also difficult where he goes, because you don't want ba, 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 ba. So that's tricky too. So now, do shape that line. Now he's going back to this business, which we already heard when we heard this. Now we're hearing it an octave lower when it's after that stream of sixteenths. So we can shape it the same way, but it's now down in a lower part of the piano in the mid range. Back to. Now we should be doing this much slower. Obviously, when you practice this, do not practice it that quickly. Keep a singing pulse, preserve a beautiful shape, and play slowly. Anyway, we're ending this with that's decaying. So you pick it up on the decay. A lot of students play that very loud, but that's coming in soft. Off. Now it builds. So what he did there was he modulated to the dominant key by putting the C sharp in. So that's a secondary dominant. Right, which entered the C sharp right there. You have an A major chord, which is a secondary dominant of this key of the dominant. It's the dominant of the dominant is what it is. So now we're in D major, and after he comes out with this gorgeous stream of 16ths, they're really beautiful. This gorgeous second theme is falling down in tenths. If you actually just trace the path of the principal notes, you'll see tenths. So that's important to know. So you want to hear those tenths. What that tells you is not to play the common tones and have them poking out of the texture. So blocking is a good idea, like this. Something like that. Just as long as you get the sense that you're not doing vertical, but you're coming down horizontally in tenths. And what he has is syncopated rhythm here because he puts the tenth up here on an offbeat. But you don't want to sound jazzy about it, but you just want to fall down beautifully. Just very beautifully. Just careen down. He has a variation of that. He's doing the same thing, only he's adding some 16th notes and different neighbor motion with this variation of what you just heard. Now this is very tricky because I think the most challenging thing about this sonata is these shifts where you come out of one dynamic level and one busybody busying 16th and in one particular dynamic, and then it shifts off to some other mood completely, and this is the place that it's very easy to falter. So might try it slower. Listen for the tenths. D. This is forte. You don't want to sound like Beethoven. You want it to sound like Mozart. Now here, these are appoggiaturas, springboards into appoggiaturas. Actually intensifies, she's getting higher and higher. Most. I do less here, I do less. For some reason, I just don't want to do them all loud because they're falling down. Two of them, I kind of, the peak one, I do the first two pair big, and then I kind of answer a little softer. Softer. And then I get kind of back into the keys. Now you're going to 2/6, 1/6/4, lean. Now here again. This is so hard because it shifts and moves. Back in the keys. Variation. Now this is tricky. Counterpoint. I do. 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1. This is counterpoint. Slow motion. Now this is gorgeous. What happens here, he's going 6 chord, 5 chord, 4 chord, 3 chord, or D major, 2 chord. It's absolutely gorgeous. He's actually coming down in the first inversion of these chords. You can see the first inversion here. If you do it like this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I can't think of anything more gorgeous. So now what I do here is I lift my left hand for that. But my right hand I do legato. Now you could do both hands legato here. You can do I'm doing slow motion. Because you should really play slow. Now the left hand is a scale. Do, T is D major. La, sol, fa, mi. That's so beautiful. What you have between the hands is tenths. Again, he loves these tenths. When you know a piece, you have to know everything about the piece, everything that's happening, the harmony, how the harmony affects the phrasing. Is it descending? Is it de-intensifying? What's going on? So what you have together is absolutely gorgeous. You have I do it this way. I slur these two. First time it's piano. Second time it's forte. So that is something to notice. So that is the exposition. Now it's very interesting that the development section, I was talking to the student, I said, where does he get this first part in terms of going back to the exposition? Where's it come from? We can figure it out. It's very playful. Now what's very interesting about this part, you can't, when you see these F's going to P, you can't thump in Mozart those F's. It just can't be. It's not the style, in my opinion. It has to be a very warm F. Forte, very this. I lean on it more. Lean. And answer. Upside down, inverted. Beginning comes back now. Very sweetly. Dominant and tonic. Now this is very beautiful because it goes into A minor. And tonic A minor, that was dominant. That was dominant. And then tonic. Now it goes into what would be like the 4 chord of C major suddenly, which would be F major. We think it's C major, but brings us back to G major because he's got the sharp back. Now he's in the home key. So this part is how it's going to be different from what we heard before. Is that before when we came to the D, we stayed in the key of D. But now he's coming back home, officially a recapitulation, one could say. Now you have the second theme in the home key. So that's a recapitulation. He stays now in the home key, gets to finish the piece in G.